So the FLR network and Google Cloud are at it again. Have a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Effortless node deployment. FLR's blockchain machine images are now live on Google Cloud. You know, back in 2022, when FLR Network first announced their relationship, their very intrusive relationship with Google Cloud, no one believed it. And no one also believed that it would even last this long. But I'll tell you, as someone who has been in this space for quite some time, they have been rolling ever since. And with this development, I really got a deeper understanding of what FLR's place in this market is. If you're new here, let me introduce myself before we really get into this good. My name is Wade. You're listening to another edition of the DHN Crypto Podcast. I've been in this space since 2019, researched over 1,000 digital assets, and the only reason I run this channel is to share all that knowledge with you. All I ask in return is you hit that like button. In this case, let's do it for FLR. Now, before we dive into this, guys, I must share this with you. It's a free PDF. Like I said, I've been in the space for a number of years, and I found a way to condense the enormity of this industry into 5 verticals, which I share with you in the PDF. You'll also find links to various crypto ecosystems to give you an idea of how they work, the good and the bad. You'll also get links to various tools and resources to help you gather the proper data for your crypto investment. It took me years to find all of these websites. I just saved you all of that time. All you got to do is go to the description. It'll be right under DHN Crypto Starter. So with that, let's dive into this. FLR's blockchain machine images. First of all, what is a blockchain machine image? I like how they worded this. Well, simply what FLR Network and Google Cloud now allows developers to do is create, well, I'll use the wording that they have here. This will spin up and sync a node of your choosing in your own environment within minutes. You can also select the latest image ID and use it in an auto-scaling group for more robust infrastructure setup. So what this is doing is making it easier for developers who use Google Cloud to connect with particular blockchain networks. And in this case, it would be the blockchain networks that are connected to FLR. We have a list. We'll look at that in just a second, but let's finish this out because there's some more juicy information. And I also want to show you this as well, because this is when the money starts to roll in. There's a pricing model for this. And as they'll get into in the article, by comparing this price to the rest of the market, FLR Network is about to cut everybody a deal, an insane deal. So let's get to the second question. How will this benefit developers? FLR's blockchain machine image as a node service solution, which allows you to spin up and sync a dedicated node, which will be ready in minutes, supports more than 20 top blockchain networks, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche. The normal process of deploying and syncing full blockchain nodes can be time intensive and costly, often needing a dedicated infrastructure team to manage. Through the Google Cloud Marketplace, this process is simplified considerably. Now, with the click of a button, nodes can be deployed and updated and used to power dApps, platforms, and data streams. One of the biggest issues with blockchain adoption right now is just how much it takes to run one. We're going to share a clip in just a few minutes. Hugo Fillion, the creator of the FLR Network, did a keynote speak at presentation at Korea Blockchain Week. This was like 2 weeks ago, I want to say. And he showed a chart comparing the cost to operate Ethereum and the cost to operate on Solana. And he was using like 1 terabyte or something like that. I'll have to look at it again to double check. But I do remember this. The metric for Ethereum, it cost anywhere from $60 million to $66 million. And with Solana, the number was $6 to $10 million. So that is a dramatic problem, especially when you look at Google Cloud, which offers the same computing power, the same resources for 27 cents. Absolutely mind-blowing. Again, I'm going to share with you a clip from that keynote. I'll leave a link to it down in the description. But the very next question here is just as important. it talks about how this will benefit businesses. I just talked about the cost reduction aspect of it. And one thing we know businesses like to do is save some money. So, as previously mentioned, node deployment and management can require a lot of time and resources. Now, I have to add here as well, a node on a blockchain is the most crucial component to any blockchain. You have to understand that blockchain is a form of DLT. They have multiple DLTs. What separates blockchains from DLTs is the form of consensus. As it stands right now, and I have an article from Chainlink's blog that explains this perfectly. It's called the Blockchain Oracle Issue. As it stands right now, blockchain nodes exist on an isolated network. A blockchain is isolated. Imagine it being a computer without an internet connection. That's the way it stands right now. Highly secure and super efficient within the system. But when it comes to incorporating real world data or things from outside of that system, that's when it becomes a problem. Through this story is how I learned that that's what FLR is focused on specifically. Now, to the point of benefiting businesses, this is where we get that pricing model. With blockchain machine images, businesses now have a cost-effective solution that will let them run nodes, freeing up to allocate their personnel and financial resources more effectively. For example, other leading blockchain node as a service providers are charging up to $2,000 per month. In contrast, the new service lets users run dedicated FLR nodes for around $300 per month, exactly $279.63 after taxes. It will also allow companies to do so without much maintenance or the infrastructure or relying on external services. That is another way that they'll be able to save money. And I hate to say it, but that also lines up with the whole ESG movement, wanting to be more climate friendly, especially when producing technologies around these projects. So let's get to the last question here, the larger implications, because they are pretty massive. What this will ultimately do, I'm going to summarize this entire paragraph for you, is make it easier for developers who go through Google Cloud's marketplace to connect with FLR and the networks that FLR is connected to. And it took me a little bit of digging to find this list, but it has been updated as of the 24th of this week. And as you can see here, these are the connected networks. So with this new blockchain machine imaging, developers through the Google Cloud Marketplace will be able to set up nodes on these networks. And as you can see, Algo, Avalanche, Bitcoin, BNB, Doge, shocking. Doge has a level of utility. A lot of people don't talk about it, but it was originally built into the code. It really was. Ethereum, Filecoin, Litecoin, Polygon, Solana, and the XRP ledger. And if you want to take it a step further, as they also mentioned too, that this will specifically benefit FLR's attestation providers. You can find that information here through FTSO, FLRmetrics.io, and you can see the FTSO data providers listed here. So this will also incorporate the backend for these entities as well. FLR has always had a goal of connecting all blockchain networks. The one thing that pulled me into FLR was the fact that they were bringing smart contract capability to non-smart contract chains. Doing that increases the utility of that particular chain. You have to excuse me. Now, I also mentioned that the relationship between Google and Google Cloud, let's keep it clear here, Google Cloud and FLR Network going back for quite some time. This article here, FLR Network gives blockchain a boost with groundbreaking protocol running on Google Cloud. This article describes not only support from Google Cloud experts, but it describes how the FLR network at its core uses a lot of the data infrastructure that Google Cloud provides. And I don't know about you, but who got the most data on the planet right now? Google. So how this ultimately works in the real world, ladies and gentlemen, is that, and as you can see here back in January, Google Cloud joined as a network validator and contributor to the FTSO, which means they will be on this list here. And I'm sure if we keep scrolling, their name will pop up here. But for the sake of time, I'll let, again, flaremetrics.io. You can verify that for yourself. But they became the validator in January. And how this is going to ultimately boil down is that it's going to make the data feeds a lot more secure. And it will also allow chains such as the ones that are connected to the Flare network, your Algorands, your Avalanches, Bitcoins, etc., to now start taking in data from real world locations and real world entities. That breaks it fixes the Oracle problem, because as it stands right now, like I mentioned, the majority of blockchains are on a closed network, like a computer without an internet connection. Flare or other Oracle assets like Chainlink or Pith, they create that connection to the internet, which in this case would be the real world. It is truly fascinating because that's exactly how the utility run kicks off. The thing that's been blocking us this whole time is that these popular blockchain networks, including Solana, are having issues bringing in real world data to their platforms. So Flare is in a position to fix that, which will make it immensely valuable. I know it hasn't been a lot of activity on the price chart, but Flare is one of those assets where you're not coming in to make money right away. You're investing in Flare because you have an understanding that this market is going to evolve, and it's going to evolve in a direction that requires smart contracts with the ability to feed off of real world data. That's what Flare is looking to provide. Now, looking at this list, it raised a couple questions because there's one asset that's missing here. And I may have an idea why. You see, Litecoin was there. They were first announced back in 2021. I remember this, made an episode about it. This was the early days of DHN. We were still called Digit Hustle News, baby. Y'all remember that? Yep. Half of y'all wasn't even here. But it's cool, though. Back then, 2021, Litecoin will get smart contracts via Flare networks. And this wasn't the only one. Next month, they announced Flare brings Ethereum compatibility to Stellar. Now, we haven't seen anything of this. You look at the documentation now, as I just showed you, the list of compatible networks updated as of the 24th of this month do not show Stellar. However, back in 2021, smart contracts on Stellar were merely a discussion. Fast forward a few more years, 2023, I believe, Sorbonne is officially active on the Stellar network. That is Stellar's smart contract leg, if you will. So now that Stellar has its own smart contracts, the conversation of it bringing that Flare bringing that compatibility to Stellar is a bit different. However, I don't see this stopping Stellar from potentially becoming an F asset and taking the data that Stellar gets from the real world, because Stellar is more of a DLT than a traditional blockchain. So they're able to pull in that real world data a lot easier. This would then position Stellar to become an FTSO data provider to the Flare network, which would still bring the connection full circle, because Flare at the same time will be connecting XRP, Bitcoin, Algorand, chains like that, while Stellar will be contributing the data that the XRP ledger, Algorand, will be using through Flare. Now, the next leg to this conversation is what gets built on top of it. And Hugo Fillion himself, I found this clip not too long ago. This is from October 27th, so yesterday. Man, this guy's been busy. But I like this perspective here. Let's take a listen really quick.
I think generally the bigger issue for me is, we find ourselves in a really weird place where we have institutional adoption through ETFs, and yet the largest product in our industry is meme coins, excluding stable coins, which are probably the most valid use case of blockchain today. For me, and I think I echo Sunny's point, which is what we want to see is applications that are intrinsic to people's lives. As yet, we're not there, and probably because the infrastructure is not yet capable, and that's why at FLR we're looking at off-chain compute.
So when he says off-chain compute, that's the ability to bring in real-world information to your blockchain. Again, the blockchain is an isolated entity. It's not connected to anything except for itself, in a sense. FLR is looking to blow that entire idea wide open. That is why there is so much value waiting to be unlocked when it comes to FLR. And documentation from competitors, you can say, what's that? Descendant? Nope, not Descendant. What comes before Descendant? You guys know what I'm talking about. The OG of oracles, okay? Chainlink. Chainlink is the first iteration of what FLR is looking to provide. Chainlink has already established dominance in the Web3 space, Generation 1 and Generation 2 cryptos. You look at their ecosystem, which we'll take a look at in a second because it's going to give us an idea of just how big this could get for FLR. But Chainlink establishing themselves Gen 1, Gen 2, and Web3. They have already established a market base. Now, what needs to happen is that what's already building on Chainlink and using Chainlink's data feeds, CCIP, things like that, they just need to scale and expand. Depending on how deep you get into the Chainlink ecosystem, you'll discover that there may be problems with that. A lot of people are saying Chainlink is centralized. So when you have a centralized oracle, which they even mentioned in this article, it creates a data integrity problem because you can't, let's just say that centralized oracle source gets tainted. Bribery, corruption, anything could happen, right? With FLR, what makes it so different is that it's decentralizing that oracle process. Whereas with Chainlink, there may be one or two oracles. On FLR, it's many oracles. And that improves the integrity of the data that you're going to get. That data, as they're going to explain here, I love this portion. I believe I still have a highlight. My highlighter app has been tripping recently, but smart contract chains, which the majority of the projects in the crypto space are aiming to be now, and the most popular ones are. However, for smart contracts to realize upwards of 90% of their potential use cases, they must connect to the outside world. For example, financial smart contracts need market information to determine settlements. Insurance smart contracts need IoT and web data to make decisions on policy payouts. Trade finance contracts need trade documents and digital signatures to know when to release payments. And many smart contracts want to settle in fiat on a traditional payment network. None of this information is inherently generated within the blockchain, nor are these traditional services directly accessible. So that's the main problem that the FLR network is looking to solve. First, it was the implementation of smart contracts to chains that weren't able to do it. Now they're taking it to the next level by providing the real world data for those smart contracts to feed off of. This literally represents the next stage of this market, folks, because it's smart contracts where programmability stems from. And currently, the only place that we're seeing programmability is in the discussion of stablecoins and central bank digital currencies. When it begins to rear its head towards commercial payments, IoT, trade finance, hell, even gaming, then the ball will really start to roll. Because with smart contracts able to feed off of real world data, it dramatically increases the functionality of these Web3 applications, which as of now can't really do much. Perfect example actually is from blockchain gaming, is in the fact that the majority of Web3 games are primarily off-chain. The majority of the game is processed off-chain. There are just a few on-chain assets, an associated token, an NFT, things like that. Once we're able to process that data on blockchain, then we're going to start having novelty apps appear. That's why you see applications like Chainlink's cross-chain transfer protocol being implemented everywhere. Circle also has their own transfer protocol, which Coinbase really picked up on. So this what Flare is really looking to do, guys, it's massive. Now I'm looking at my timer. I want to get this clip out here so that way we have the best understanding. And then after that, I'm going to show you on a price chart what Flare would look like at Chainlink's market cap. Let me see if I can get this in here. Yep, and Skippy Salad.
Work. You have a chain where people have built dApps, but that chain doesn't provide data, so they need to get it from somewhere. Someone builds a system external to the chain. Let's call them, for argument's sake, BlockLink. They and their friends set up some computers that aren't part of the chain, nodes. Let's say there are 9 of these computers in total. And dApp1 needs the USD Korean won price. And dApp2 needs the Ethereum USD price. Well, out of those 9 nodes, 3 of those nodes might decide to provide a price feed for USD Korean won, and 4 might provide the price feed for USD ETH. Well, firstly, 9 off-chain entities is not many, and this is an example. But in reality, it's only 31, which is still very few. Secondly, what is securing these off-chain entities? In reality, that isn't clear. There's no well-defined economic security for almost all of the oracles out there. Who are these entities? Well, for many price feeds, that's also not clear. And lastly, if you're a developer, you're faced with the uncomfortable situation where a popular price feed may have many contributors, but the price feed you need may have very few. In today's oracles, across the 2 most popular oracles, Chainlink and Pyth, the worst supported oracle has only 5 data providers. And this unnecessarily complicates the development experience, limits experimentation, and massively reduces the probability that we will uncover future use cases that are valuable to us as an industry. So to summarize data before Flare, oracles are applications that are external to the chain, like Chainlink or Pyth. They have minimal security guarantees. They're often not very transparent. Try to figure out what is securing your Chainlink nodes. That is quite a challenge. There's really almost no information publicly available about that.
Yeah, this is a very, very interesting keynote. It's about 30 minutes altogether. We don't want to get into all of it. I would advise you to definitely check it out for yourself. This is on Flare Network's YouTube channel. And again, that's another trend, guys. These crypto companies are now starting to leverage YouTube. YouTube is the 2nd largest search engine behind the company that owns it, and that's Google, who just so happens to be working with the Flare Network. Don't you love it how this stuff comes together, guys? All right, so let's first of all, before we get into that price comparison, I want to show you an example. This is Chainlink's ecosystem, and I got it sorted by data provider. And the reason why is because the data providers are what makes Chainlink's oracles valuable. So the value of your data is contingent upon the value of your providers. So if your providers are questionable, then your data will definitely be questionable. However, with Chainlink, over the years, man, they have established some very interesting relationships when it comes to data providers. Most notably, when it comes to big names, you have GSR. You also have the Associated Press. It would take us a little bit more scrolling. You see Coinmetrics is a big name in the crypto space. But a few years ago, they also linked up with NASDAQ. That was interesting. So we're talking about stocks, live stocks, price feeds, and any application that runs on Chainlink that wants to incorporate that data, they're getting it directly from NASDAQ. That's an example here. World Weather Online. I distinctly remember a weather application running on Chainlink, and I believe it was in as part of the weather channel, like officially. You can definitely take the time to look into Chainlink. Chainlink is a project that should not be slept on. It's one of the OGs in the space, and the OGs are always going to have their spot. They're always going to have their spot, in my opinion. Which you see, they provide data to CoinGecko, which is another big entity in the crypto space. Kaiko, when it comes to crypto research, things like that. So that's sort of an example of just how big this could get for Flare in the future. And you can already see, again, the FTSO list. They have a large number of providers already. What will come next are more mainstream providers similar to Google. Now, before we get out of here, guys, just take a look at this really quick. CoinMarketCapOf.com. Love this website. Show me the price of asset A with the market cap of asset B. A would be Flare, B is Chainlink, and we have it set to where Chainlink's market cap is as of this morning. And if Flare were to go from the $700 million market cap it sits at right now to 6.8 billion, you're looking at a 9x from here. 10,000 Flare tokens is about $150 right now. That's a decent spread, in my opinion. So I know I said that was the last thing, but this is officially the last thing, guys. Have to go back to this map. We had to go back to this map because at the bottom, what do you see here? Let me make sure you guys can see that. It's a Flare network. It's Flare network. Now, this document was created in 2022. Flare had only launched 12 months prior. How in the heck did this individual know that Flare was going to be a crucial component to the future of this system, to this quantum financial system? All the more reason why this is the most compelling document I have ever come across in crypto. So, with that, guys, again, don't forget to check out the DHN Crypto Starter Kit. It'll link you to all of these ecosystems. It'll give you a better idea of how to understand the crypto space, and it'll save you years of time fishing through articles, fishing through websites online. With that, y'all know what time it is. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.